This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Alan. Hey Alan, how you doing?
Hello. First and foremost, I always want to sandwich aligned things with gratitude. So the first part of the sandwich is gratitude. Thank you for having me. And for anyone who is
Of course.
listening, I know this is an audio only podcast right now. For anyone who is listening, I do not take that lightly because ultimately, whatever you pay attention to is influencing what you say, think, do, feel, and believe, which is really influencing your future. And so I don't take it lightly. Thank you for having me. And we want to talk about self improvement today. It's my favorite thing in the entire world. So I'm excited.
Very cool. I'm very thankful and happy to have you here as well. And yeah, to get us started, maybe if you just want to introduce yourself to the people, tell us a little bit about yourself, let us know about your journey, your life, anything you want to share.
Okay. So I just turned 36 on Sunday. I'm Allen version 3.6 is what I call it.
Mm.
I am a computer engineer, so I always give that disclaimer up front. For me, everything's numbers and formulas and statistics and probabilities. And I realize now that that's very the rarer modality of thinking. I think there's four main modalities of thinking. And the rarest one I believe to be mathematics, statistics, probabilities, and formulas. So my business partner always says whenever Alan says, "Hey, I'm an engineer," basically that gives him an excuse to be a dick. He's being playful.
Thanks.
When in reality, I'm big on objective truth and candor. So who am I? I am someone who had a very challenging upbringing. My father passed away when I was 2. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. My stepfather left at 14. He took a lot of the income with him, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations in my childhood. And I came from a small town in Massachusetts called Uxbridge. I actually still live in the
Mhm.
northern part of that town currently. Didn't expect that, but went away for a long time, and then I came back because my girlfriend and I we found a really gorgeous condo in the northern part of the same town. But ultimately,
Mm.
who am I? I'm a coach. I'm a podcaster. I'm a trainer. That's the main things that I do at this stage. I have an 18-person team. I'm the CEO of Next Level University, which is a brand and a business and a podcast. And really, underneath all of this is Next Level U, pun intended, Next Level University. It's a place you go to learn how to reach your potential. And so my purpose, my calling, my focus in life is written on my whiteboard over here. It's you are here to reach your own unique potential. Unique is underlined, and to help others do the same. Everything else is secondary. And so everything I do and don't do really does kind of fall under that one sort of North Star because my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. And when I was 26, I got into my own car accident. And it really, Jeff Bezos has a quote where he says, some people have a job, some people have a calling, and some people have a job, some people have a career, and some people have a calling. And for me, I had a career in corporate that was very successful. And then I got in that car accident. And that's when I really found my calling. And my calling ultimately is holistic self improvement, level up your life, love, health, and wealth. And that's what I help people do now is be both successful externally, but also fulfilled internally. And the reason why is because I went through a lot of external success without internal fulfillment. I also went through a lot of lack of success with internal fulfillment because after my car accident, I kind of went broke. And I think we all want to get to a place where we're both externally successful and internally fulfilled. And that's actually, I think, a really challenging thing to do because usually what the economy pays most for is not actually the work that is most meaningful to us. Not always, but a lot of the time.
Yes, uh, I definitely agree with that. So maybe to take it chronologically, what initially, I mean, you kind of told us as well, but what initially sparked this idea of diving into self improvement in general and then the holistic side? Why is it such an important topic to you?
So when I was When I was younger, my mom taught me, she said, "Alan, if you aim high, you'll have choices. So you can be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way. But if you go for CEO, you can wake up one day and just decide to be a farmer, but it does not necessarily work the other way around." And so she said, aim high and you'll have choices. That was to this day the best lesson I've ever gotten. Now, one of the things that I do want to share is a lot of people tell us things like education's important or whatever, but they don't necessarily lead by example. And so if anyone's out there listening to this, leading by example, I think is everything. I think it's really important, right? So I'm not going to say a word that I'm not actually leading by example in behind the scenes when no one's watching. And one of the reasons why is because I feel like growing up, there was a lot of people that were saying one thing but doing another, and that drove me nuts.
Mm.
The When it comes to the self improvement piece, why that's so important is ultimately it's what I always would have needed. I think the root cause of human suffering, from what I can understand, I've always been sort of an existentialist. I've always questioned everything. I've always tried to understand everything, myself, others, in the world. It wasn't really myself much until after 26, but I was always trying to understand, and I was always sort of a scientist trying to observe and study everything. And what I noticed was that the root cause of all human suffering seems to be, and this is the best I've got thus far, either ignorance or apathy. Ignorance is we just don't know enough, or apathy is we just don't care enough. So I'm always asking myself the question, sort of existential questions of where are we still putting leeches on our skin to cure illness? Where are we still believing the world is flat? The truth is, despite everyone says, well, there's everyone has their own truth. I actually believe in objective truth. So whether you, despite your opinion, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. And as a math thinker, there is an objective truth. And unfortunately, a lot of people are living a life where they think very inaccurately. And so to me, self-improvement is the root that will solve the fruit, so to speak, which is if all of us work on ourselves and we try to become better than we used to be, stronger, smarter, more capable, more virtuous. So Allen version 3.6, for example, I'm 36 years old, is far better than Allen version 3.5, which is far better than Allen version 2.5, which is far better than Allen 1.5. And so I have an iPhone 14, and I think this is a good metaphor for everybody, which is in 2007, when I was a senior, the very first iPhone came out, and it was a revolutionary breakthrough. It was an iPod and a phone and the internet all in your pocket. And if you compare that very first iPhone that at one point was a revolutionary breakthrough to this iPhone 14, it would be hot garbage. It wouldn't even be close. And this 14 probably isn't nearly as good as the 16, which I don't have yet. The point is that just like your iPhone updates the software and hardware every year or whatever it is, you can update the software and hardware of you. And I'm a computer engineer, so I used to code where you'd find a bug, which is an error in the software, and then you'd go in and you'd reprogram it. And ultimately, human beings have limiting beliefs that are errors in the code, our conditioning, our limiting beliefs, our culture, our enculturation, our trauma, all these things. So that's really my job now, which is I have 26 clients on my roster currently. I started mentoring 10 years ago. I've been coaching for 8. And really what I'm doing, I was on with a woman named Bonnie right before this. I spend the hour goals, metrics, habits, skills, and identity. And what we do is we go into her mind, body, heart, and soul, and we reprogram her to reach her potential and be both successful and fulfilled. Because if you're successful, but it's not in alignment with who you really are, you won't be fulfilled, which I've been there. And if you are fulfilled but not successful, you kind of can't sustain it because you don't have maybe the income to really live a high quality of life. And so ultimately, that's what I do. But I think self improvement is the thing that was missing from my childhood that I really wish. That's the one thing that I feel like can change everything. That's a great question, existential question. What's the one thing that could change everything? And for me, the answer is holistic self improvement, life, love, health, and wealth. And if everyone can focus there, we can all be better both individually and collectively. And that's how the world is going to change.
Right. Um, so there were a lot of good things already in what you said, and a lot of my questions you already answered while you were talking, which is
Mhm.
always great. Um, So I love the logical like approach to it as well. Like you said, coming at it from an engineer kind of view, like a very logical um just approach in general. And obviously, that's not what humans are most of the time. We are most of the time very emotional and not really rational. So maybe to ask the question, because you already hinted at it as well. Um, People might not feel like they're unfulfilled. They might tell themselves stories, like you said. They might hold beliefs that make it easier for them to, and not to say that everyone is unhappy, because I personally don't think that everyone is. But what would you say? What how could someone get into that logical mindset and try to observe themselves from a kind of outside perspective? Because that's not an easy thing to do, I reckon.
It's not. And the really important thing to understand here is a couple things. Number one is self belief. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's genetic potential or what, but I always really believed in myself a lot. Number two, I was born with a very powerful mind, and I'm very grateful for that. And I felt very gifted, and I used to be too much of a coward to share a lot of that, but I think it's important for people to know. And the third thing is, if it wasn't for my car accident, I probably wouldn't have gotten as focused on self improvement. And this is the piece that I think is really critical is there's professional development and then there's personal development. Professional development is resume, cover letter, computer engineering, master's degree, MBA, all the resume, cover letter, LinkedIn. Professional development is hard skills, effective communication, spreadsheets. These hard skills and being professionally developed. That's half of the equation. The other half is personal development, which is improving yourself, which is self reflection, vulnerability, humility, courage, virtue, self reflection, self acceptance, self love, self discipline, these self improvement oriented things. And so a lot of the world is very separated between what I call righties and lefties. I mean, some of us are lefty or righty, and we're all professional development and very little personal development. I know some people from my college. I went to WPI. It's like a mini MIT in Massachusetts. It's one of the best, very grateful, one of the best engineering schools, colleges in the world, and very expensive. I'm actually speaking there next month, actually. But
Oh wow.
ultimately, a lot of the engineers that I went to college with are very professionally developed resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, Apple, and all these different tech companies. But they're not as personally developed. And I wasn't either. I was very professionally developed, but I wasn't super personally developed. And then I got in my car accident. And then I did what you asked, which was I started to look at me as not me. I started to look in the mirror. I started to see, okay, I'm out of shape. I drink too much and too often. I'm not as humble as I need to be. I'm definitely not reaching my potential. Holy crap. I have too many high school friends and college friends and corporate friends, and I'm not proud of who I am. And it's not that I was a bad person by any means. I was a very good person. I was just a lot more lost than I realized. And after my car accident, my dad died in a car when he was 28. So for me, I was 26 and this was no fender bender. This was a pretty intense head-on collision. Fortunately, I was in a very safe car and me and my little cousin, my second cousin, were okay physically.
Right.
Airbags deployed. He hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbags. We were definitely rattled because it was bad, but we were physically okay. No permanent damage. But mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I was completely shaken up in every existential way I can describe. This was the second chance my dad never got. And so after that, I have these three circles of the ego that I teach. The outer layer is who you want to believe you are, who you want others to believe you are. Okay. That's your perception or your persona. Then the next layer in is who you want to believe you are. This is the story you tell yourself about yourself. And then the inner circle is who you really are. And for me, the car accident collapsed all those circles in to be the same. And my goal in life now, honestly, one of my goals is to keep those circles the same. I don't want to be different behind the scenes than I am right here, right now. Now, of course, you have to be a little different with different types of people because I have to communicate effectively. I can't teach calculus to a 7-year-old unless they're a prodigy. So you have to, of course, you have to cater to the room as a speaker and an orator and a effective communicator. However, I don't want me, who I really am, to be different in each room, and that takes a ton of courage. And so
Yes.
that I had to work on for a long time because I was such a social coward. So, long story long here to answer your original question. So, the way that someone can get started is self reflection. It's ask yourself questions about yourself. Am I humble? From 0 to 10, how humble am I really? From 0 to 10, how much do I believe in myself really? Not what I pretend, not what I'm like in public. I'm talking when I'm alone behind the scenes. Who you are and what you are when no one's watching, that is who you really are. And that is the version of you that you can really work on if you want to start becoming the next level version of yourself.
Yes. Um, that idea of the three circles really resonated with me as well. And I personally feel as well, um, the more these circles, to use your words, became one in my personal life, I felt a lot of internal pressure also releasing. And because we are kind of playing parts in specific, or well, we shouldn't, as you said, but most of us do, and we play parts depending on where we are, what we are trying to portray to the outside. And a question that I always ask myself, because I feel like I kind of get a feel for it now, but do you think that people can pick up on that, let's call it authenticity? Like, is that something if people really, because I enjoyed how you just talked about it as well, like just as transparentness, and you say, "Oh, I was a coward then," and just like, is that something that other people pick up on as well, right? So that's something people should keep in mind as well.
I think deep down, all human beings crave belonging and authenticity. And we all have fears. There's two types of people in the world. There's people who are afraid, and there's liars. um, we're just not afraid of the same things. Some people are afraid to be less than. Some people are afraid to be more than. Some people are afraid of failure. Other people are afraid of success. Some people are afraid of being embarrassed. Some people are afraid of being hurt. Some people are afraid of being made fun of or judged. And so we have these sort of core wounds. And my business partner, Kevin, he said, "You are either," this is his quote, "you are either afraid that all of you is not enough, or you are afraid that all of you is too much." So for me, I had the second one, he had the first one, and we over the years have matured to realize that I was kind of dimming myself and pretending I wasn't as smart as I really am, and he was sort of inflating himself and pretending he's smarter than he really is, and eventually we got older and
Right.
older and older and realized that that's a losing game. Just, trying to be, people say, "Oh, just be yourself." Yeah, as if that's that easy. It's the hardest thing in the world because we all have this fear of being hurt or being more than or less than. And everyone's been at that holiday party with their family where you feel like you can't be yourself. And all of us know that our most authentic relationships are with the people where we feel like loved, seen, appreciated, and valued for who we really are. So my girlfriend, she's brilliant. She's unbelievable. She is my 10 out of 10. She's the person who I feel like understands me at the deepest level and who I can be all of me with, the good, the bad, the ugly, the up, the down, the and I hopefully everyone has that person. And then as you ripple outward into the world, it gets more and more difficult to be who you really are because if I'm optimizing for being liked right now, I can't say half the things I've already said. And so I get to choose. Do I want to be all of who I am? Do I want to be authentic or do I want to be liked? I've
Yeah.
fortunately, after 26, worked really hard in therapy and different things, personal growth, to learn how to be okay with being who I am, even if I'm disliked. Whereas I know for a fact that when I was younger, in high school, college, I cared more about being liked than I cared about being me. And I think that when we get older and we face mortality, maybe the death of a loved one or the death of a pet or maybe a car accident like me, you realize that you can never be fulfilled, truly internally fulfilled, unless you are being authentic to who you are. I was thinking about this earlier because I actually, ironically enough, I was on a call with Bonnie, one of my clients, and we were talking about
Yeah.
authenticity. And I was thinking to myself, authenticity. What is an authentic antique? It's one that isn't manufactured. It's one that's real. It's one that's actually we have this chest that my mom got us for I think it was Christmas last year or the year before. And she refurbished it. It's from I don't know where it's from, but it's an old chest that she refurbished and repainted and made it nice because it was so buggy and all that kind of stuff. But it's not its authentic self anymore because she painted it and made it nice and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that's what we try to do. We try to I mean, I have a nice collared shirt on, I have my hair done, I have an Apple Watch on. Am I my authentic self right now? I would say I'm more my authentic self than I used to be, but I'm still working toward being even more and even more and even more of my authentic self. But there's a caveat. The more you are your authentic self, the more fulfilled you'll be. The more fulfilled you are, the more challenges you will face. The more challenges you face, the more you will grow. The more you grow, the more you have to reinvent who your authentic self is. I was on a podcast earlier today. His name's Amir. He said he was talking about finance. He's a CFP, certified financial planner. And he said, "Do you know what cost dollar averaging is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of it, but talk to me." He's like, "Okay, well," and I forget the mathematical term he used, but I had this moment of I want to be honest that I don't know what you're talking about so that I can learn. Most people, what
Yeah.
they do when they don't know something is they get insecure, they pretend they do know, they nod, and they don't ask the quote unquote dumb question. So because you're afraid to be seen as less than in a moment, you actually become less than because you don't ask the question and actually learn. I picked his brain for 20 minutes and now I understand something that I didn't it's Raymond's formula or something like that. I have to look it up because I've obviously forgotten, which again is me being authentic. I forgot. I totally forgot. I have to go to my Google history and figure out because I Googled it earlier. I was on Wikipedia with the guy. The point is do you own your strengths and your weaknesses? Do you own all of who you are in that moment? And that takes tremendous courage. Why? Because we're all afraid to be more than or less than, or we inflate, we deflate, or we omit. There's three ways we lie. We inflate, we deflate, or we omit. And I try really hard not to lie to myself and not to lie to others. And the more I do that, the more I can make decisions based on truth, based on objective truth. Because I could easily say, "Oh, I'm not that smart. Oh, yeah, no, I'm not that smart." Statistically speaking, everyone knows I'm full of it. Of course you are. And anyone who's insecure about being intelligent knows it because they're triggered by me. So, whatever you are, be a great one. Whatever you are, work to be an even better version of that. I think there's two things. One is self acceptance first and then self improvement. I think that's valuable versus what I think in the past I was doing unconsciously is let me try to change the things about myself I don't like instead of accepting them first. So I do accept who I am first, not to the point where I don't want to change or improve, but now I'm going to accept who I am and then improve from there versus try to tell myself a story that I'm different than who I really am. And I think that's what real self-love is I think it comes from self-acceptance, self-awareness, and self-love, and then self-improvement and self-discipline can kind of help you improve that version of you from there. And so I do think people can tell when you're authentic. I think it's an intuitive knowing, and I think people are drawn to authenticity.
Yes. Um, So there's actually two questions that I have now. Let's start with the first one. Maybe to just go into a little bit more detail here because I think it's an important thing, and it was something that I was struggling as well. So you said self acceptance. You said really acknowledging your flaws, whatever they might be. And because it does, or at least to me, it did for a long time sound kind of counterintuitive. It's like, that's the things I don't like about myself, right? Because why shouldn't I change them? Why shouldn't I try to omit them and like not? Why would I go into these emotions? Why would I go into these feelings rather than go into them, feel them out, and basically work with them. So yeah, maybe if you can say a little bit more about that, why is it so important to be conscious of those? Why is it important to really like be aware of them?
Well, the first thing is I think self-awareness has to be before self-acceptance. I have a pyramid that I built on my LinkedIn, but I think I need to change it. It's an article that I wrote. And all these words too, by the way,
Mm,
self-respect, self-discipline, self-love, self-acceptance. It's you versus your potential, self. And it seems selfish, but it's not because the more you become, the more you can give. And if you reach
yes.
your potential, you can help more people. And if you help more people, you'll face challenges that also help you reach your potential. Huh. So it's a good thing. It's not, there's a book called The Virtue of Selfishness, and it's all about self improvement from that frame instead of people think it's selfish to not go to the barbecue. No, no, no. It's selfless if you're trying to reach your potential and you go to the gym instead. And then that inspires other people to be more healthy. So it's a really important notion. But when you
Yeah.
talk about the self acceptance and the conundrum, the paradox, one thing that I think is really important to understand is duality and paradox. And this is so alarming because no one really taught us this stuff in school. I'll explain each one at a time. And if you don't understand duality and paradox, you're in trouble because as much as I'm scared to say this, you you will always be held back by black and white thinking. So,
Mm,
for example, I have 26 clients, right? And they all have different industries, different cultures, different backgrounds, different ages, different sexes, different ethnicities, different countries. I think I already said that. Okay. What is good for one of them is actually bad for the other. So I have one client who I'm thinking of who needs to work harder. I have another client who
yeah.
should needs more rest and relaxation.
Right.
So people say, "Oh, you need to rest more." Like and they say it on podcasts. Uh depends. I remember one time I was on a podcast with a woman named Deborah and she's a sweetheart, so I wasn't upset with this, but I told her that I haven't taken a full day off in 10 years. And my car
Well,
accident was when I was 26 and I'm 36 now and I haven't taken a full day off. And it doesn't mean I work all day every day. Some days I work 1 hour, some days I work 17 hours. Today's going to be a big one. And she said, "Alan, that's bad for you." And I said, "No, Deborah, that's bad for you." And what I was trying to say is that it's a little bit arrogant and pretentious to assume that it's bad for me what I've decided to do with my life. Because, in all honesty, I am far healthier than that person. I'm far more fulfilled than that person. I'm having a bigger impact in the world than that person. And I'm more profitable than that person. So when she says, "Oh, that's bad for you," it's, well, says who? And this is the think differently thing. And to answer your original question, paradox and duality. Duality is holding two seemingly opposing ideas in your consciousness simultaneously. There's a book called The Self-Made Billionaire Effect. It came out back in 2012. And it talked about, I think, 1,200 self made billionaires. And it said the one thing that they had in common most is that they could hold two seemingly opposing ideas in their consciousness simultaneously. And if you can't do that, You need self-belief and humility. It's called the genius of the and. You need intelligence and hard work. You ever hear that saying, "Work smart, not hard"? Dumbest thing ever.
Mm.
You need to work hard in order to learn how to work smart. We all know you have to beat your head against the wall a few times before you learn how to innovate. Imagine Apple
Mm.
being like, "You know what? Just work smart. Don't worry about working hard." Worst idea ever.
Yeah.
It's work smart and hard. It's be humble and believe in yourself. It's be optimistic and protect the downside. It's an and. It's not an or, it's an and. Be productive and get rest. That's duality. Paradox. Now, here's the weird one. Paradoxically, if I think working smart, not hard is dumb, it actually is smart for me. That's a paradox. Meaning the people who think work smart, not hard is smart, they're probably lazy. So for them, it's not
Mhm.
smart. For someone who thinks it's dumb, they probably work way too hard at the expense of working smart. So for me, paradoxically, it's probably good. And this is where everyone has to really reflect. If you think work smart, not hard is a good idea, you most likely are too lazy and need to work harder, as scared as I am to say that. If you think it's dumb like I do, you probably are working too hard at the expense of working more intelligently. And so everything's a paradox. Leadership is a paradox. The servant leader who goes into battle first is the one who leads the best. But and leaders eat last. It's a paradox. Everything in life is a paradox. If you're professionally developed, you need personal development. If you're personally developed, you need professional development. Duality, you need both. If what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it. If you want a therapist, trust me, you need a coach. If you want a coach, I had dozens of coaches and mentors. I desperately needed a therapist. I didn't want a therapist. I needed one. And we all live in this world, right? So I'm a business coach. What people need is self improvement. What they want is to grow their business. So people come to me to grow their business. And then what do? Self improvement. Because you, as a business owner, whoever you are, or a CEO like me, you are the bottleneck of your own business. Always, 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 always. We can set up your goals and your metrics and your habits and your skills, but your identity, the self improvement piece is always the biggest bottleneck.
Wow. Yeah, I'm learning so much here. This is great. This is all very, very valuable. Um, and to take it back to the other question I originally had, but it also ties in pretty good with what you said because um, I think not only for CEOs, but basically for everyone, whatever we do and we work, I feel like it's very important to know who we are and work on ourselves to be the best in whatever we professionally do. And the question I've had, um, do you think, because you also touched on it as well, we never got taught any of this. So I don't wanna put a value on it, but just objectively speaking, is that something that society kind of it's something that society does where they put the focus on the professional side and not really ever on the personal development side.
Greatest error in all of human history, in my opinion. Uh, I had a so when I was 26, I after that car accident, that was my existential crisis. I got all the humble pie at once, and then I started to get really into personal development and fitness, and I started to chase my dreams, and I went through a lot of stuff. Because while there was a lot of post traumatic growth after the car accident, there was also a lot of PTSD stuff and trauma, and I was claustrophobic, and double yellow lines scared me because it was a head on collision where I crossed the road. So getting back in a car was hard for me. So I dealt with a lot of challenges as well as growth. And I started a little company called Alan Lazaros LLC. What you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know, and desperately was in all caps. and I wanted to bring
Mm.
personal development to the school systems, and, that was a a terrible idea. Uh, Good luck getting speeches in high schools and colleges with that slogan, you know? But I did, I actually did get several speeches in, and I was an inspirational, motivational, educational speaker, and I realized very quickly that the world doesn't value personal development nearly to the extent that I think it should, and we care more in America about football than we do about our own personal development. And it really is alarming. I used to say this about some of my friends growing up. I said, if you put half as much passion into your own career as you do knowing every stat of every football player,
Mm.
you'd be living the freaking dream. I mean, you guys really care a lot about this stuff. And again, passions are passions. I love film. But at the end of the day, you really need to focus on your own personal development. If, let's say if, I'm big on if then. If you do want to reach your potential, if you do want a high quality of life or a high net worth, if you do want a magnificent job, career, and calling, if you do want to be in love and have a great marriage, you have to work on yourself more than football or whatever. And unfortunately, the world doesn't value personal development nearly to the extent that I think it should. And the education system doesn't either. And I you know, I did the kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, bachelor's degree in computer engineering with high distinction, straight A's through all of high school. I was eighth in my class. And I didn't take a finance course until I was in grad school. We use money every day. We eat food every day. We use our bodies every day. Why don't we learn anything about nutrition, fitness, or finance? Why isn't there a personal development class? We communicate with people every day. Why isn't there an effective communication class? Why isn't there a vulnerability, humility, and courage class? Why isn't there an empathy class? We are not learning the fundamentals that human beings need to flourish. I didn't understand cognitive behavioral therapy. I didn't understand internal family systems. These are all things you can research. These are modalities of therapy that can help you understand yourself. And if you don't understand yourself, or you don't understand others, or you don't understand the world, you're basically playing chess against the greatest chess masters in the world when you don't understand what the pieces do. And you can't win that game. And then everyone wonders why the majority statistically are overweight and the majority statistically, don't do well and the majority statistically get divorced. The truth is we're not learning about the ways to we need to be proactive in our own education. So there's professional development and there's personal development and you need both. And unfortunately, the industrial revolution created a lot of education around professional development far more than personal development. And for me, that was the biggest mistake ever. And for me, I'm not just saying that from some high horse. I also was professionally developed to a T, but yet not personally developed. And to me, that was not only my biggest regret, but I think it's something that is still very much hurting the world. And that's actually why I'm here, because this is spreading self improvement. This is spreading personal development, personal growth, mental health. These things need to be ubiquitous. And unfortunately, they're not in comparison to, maybe football or whatever.
Yes. Um, I, I really like the if then part as well, because something that I kind of also realized, or a belief that I currently hold, is that not all people actually do strive or to be like exceptional or whatever that means to everyone personally. I actually hold the belief that some people, they can be very happy, you know, having their family. Maybe they have bought their house, they have their family, they do watch their football on the weekend, and that's their life, and that's what they are happy with. So my question is, because I have this conversation with a lot of my friends, and I'm keen to hear your perspective on it. What do you think? Why do some people have in the back of their head Because maybe it can also be a negative thing. Maybe why don't we have this? Oh, I need to get to this level. Oh, I need to reach the next one. Oh, you know what? Why do some people have that?
Mm. So I believe that fulfillment is a byproduct. So happiness, I think, is a little when I was younger, I looked around and I playfully refer to where I grew up as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Small town, small minded. And I looked around and my mom and stepdad hung out with people who I don't believe had a lot of direction. And the old me never had the courage to share any of that, but here we are. And I remember I had an argument with my mom at one point when in my early 20s. And she said, "Why does intelligence matter so much to you? Why isn't it enough to just be nice?" And I remember thinking, that's a really dumb question. But ultimately, what's the difference between a smartphone and a dumb phone? A smartphone is more capable. So intelligence is one of the most important things in the entire world. Everyone's talking about AI right now. It's like, well, we all have our own intelligence. So if you are intelligent, you can calculate the statistical probability of outcomes in advance, and then you can make better choices, which will make it a higher likelihood that you have a higher quality of life. And so my 20-year-old answer, I think I was 21 or 22, and I said, "Mom, I'm trying to figure out the formula to not end up old and miserable like everybody else." And that was my exact words. And I was kind of keep in mind that was my ego 21-year-old version of it. But ultimately I looked around and I was alarmed. I mean, most people didn't like their job. Everybody seemed to party on the weekends and then hate the work week. And half these marriages, you don't even like each other, never mind love each other. I mean, I was so scared of marriage. This looks atrocious. And then you have people coming up to you when you're a kid. And I remember when I was 14, 15, 16, I worked at a golf course. I was a bus boy and a cart kid. And I took care of the golf carts and I was a bus boy in the restaurant. And I remember these people would go, "Oh, these are the best years of your life. These are the best years of your life." I heard that over and over and over again. I remember thinking, hell no, that I hope not, because this is awful, right? I think high school sucked. But anyways,
Mm.
I realized, okay, these are the best years of your life. And high school is not
Right.
the best years of your life. That's inaccurate. The best years of my life are my life's getting better, significantly better. Now, also my high school life, my stepfather left at 14. I mean, we were broke. It wasn't great. However,
Right.
if you improve yourself and you become more intelligent, you can make better choices and get better outcomes, and the quality of your life can improve, even though most people don't. So, to answer your question about fulfillment and happiness, I think happiness is a little fluffy and it's hard to grab. You don't really know. Pursuit of happiness. Are you happy? I don't know. Happy. I think it's too fluffy. So, I try to do fulfillment, and fulfillment is a formula.
Right.
And so, for people who are out there who you referenced, that you believe are actually happy or fulfilled, being average or whatever word you used, I believe that that might be because, statistically speaking, maybe they are average. Now, let me explain before anyone villainizes me. I don't believe that human beings can be deeply fulfilled unless they are in alignment with their potential. There's a book called Flowers for Algernon that
Oh yeah.
explores this concept of ignorance is bliss. I don't agree that ignorance is bliss. I think ignorance is eventual devastation. And I think that ignorance will hurt you. What you don't know will hurt you. And compared to what there is to know, I know nothing. Compared to other people, apparently I know quite a bit. And only in later on. But even as a kid, like I feel like I really studied a lot. Okay. Life. I studied life a lot. I didn't necessarily study academically. Okay. So if you have high potential, you inherently will have more self belief. In psychology, this is known as self efficacy. If you have high self efficacy, you will project into the future. And your mind, your executive function of your prefrontal cortex, can project into the future and see outcomes in advance. And in chess, this is a good metaphor. Chess is a game where novices, beginners can think 3 moves ahead, novices can think 3 to 5, uh, amateurs can think 5 to 7, experts can think 7 to 9, and then masters can think 9 to 12, and then grandmasters can think 12 to 15 moves ahead. And I think that as we get older and we develop our prefrontal cortex in the metaphor, I think you can become a grandmaster of life. And Yoda would be a good example. These are all, fictional characters that represent people who have the wisdom, which is knowledge plus reflection plus knowledge plus experience plus reflection equals wisdom. And so I'm much more aware at 36, so I can project into the future better and I can manifest goals and dreams. And that's what I help my clients with. Why? Because I'm more aware. Like, how do you make a sandwich? When you're a kid, you don't know. You have to go learn how to do it, and then you look it up, and okay, you make it wrong, and you fail for it, and all this stuff. And so it's an accumulated wisdom through knowledge and experience and reflection over time. And so the more that you do that, the more you can be in alignment with your potential. So if, again, if you have a potential of level 7 and you don't reach for that, I think that will eat at you. Back to the Flowers for Algernon. Flowers for Algernon is a book where it's essentially a mentally challenged individual who is writing in their journal. You can look this up, and they are given a drug that makes them smarter over time. So you can see that the thought processes evolve over time from very simple, primitive, mentally challenged, not spelling things right, uneducated, to and it's really Algernon. Flowers for Algernon is like this understanding that this person who was mentally challenged became more and more and more and more intelligent and realized that, oh, the people that I thought were my friends actually were making fun of me. And that's where ignorance is bliss comes in, because the more you're aware of, the more responsibility you kind of have to take. Because the truth is, we don't all have the same potential. I don't have the responsibility to be LeBron James in the NBA. He has a responsibility to be better than me at basketball. I have a responsibility to be more intellectually sound than him, maybe. Maybe. Yes. Most likely. Now, at the end of the day, the point is you versus your potential. I'm not I used to, yeah, awesome. I want to be the best gamer and I want to be a video gamer. I want to be a model. I don't do that anymore. It's me versus my potential. There is no nobility in being better than others. There's all nobility in being better than you used to be. And that really is the game we're all playing. It's you versus you. It's you versus your potential. And if you're not reaching your potential, your unique potential, it will not be fulfilling. The easy road is not meaningful. What is meaningful is growth and contribution and profitability and virtue and expansion. That's how we got here, right? We have phones and we have iPads and we have technology and we have internet. All that stuff was always possible. But human beings had to learn and grow through accumulated knowledge over time to learn how to do those things and build those things. And so that's hopefully what we're all trying to do, is better our best, because everyone's doing their best, not everyone's bettering their best. And if you better your best every single day, it can compound into quite a massive transformation.
So you were talking about the individual potential. And just again, I really like that answer because it does make a lot of sense on a lot of levels, also to me personally. And we already talked, you already mentioned therapy a couple of times. I don't know if you personally journal as well. I would imagine you might, to keep track of your progress. So the question I want to ask is, if anyone is out there and they are wondering right now, well, something is eating at me. I do not feel fulfilled, but what is this personal potential? Um, do you have specific, I just call them journal prompts. I don't know if that's a word for it. Do you have specific questions that people can ask themselves to discover themselves?
Absolutely. Questions are so important. And for the existentialists among us, an existentialist is a fancy word for someone who questions human existence. And a lot of people are, I call them bobbers. They can't go beneath the surface at all. So picture a holiday
Yeah.
party or Thanksgiving at dinner. You're not, imagine being at Thanksgiving dinner or whatever you celebrate. and being like, "Hey, what's your what's your calling?" People would be like, "What do you mean, what's my calling?" "Well, have you ever wondered why you're here?" "Uh, no. Who the hell are you?" It would never happen, right? These topics are taboo. I remember I
Yeah.
was at Thanksgiving one time, and apparently Cher had done the Thanksgiving Day parade, and someone across the table was saying, "Did you guys see Cher's hair today?" And I remember thinking to myself, I cannot even believe that anyone would ever contemplate and waste their time and effort thinking about Cher's hair. I'm not trying to be unkind, but I need to say this because it's really important. You only have so much time and effort and money in this life. Time is finite, effort is semi-finite, aka it can grow over time, and money is infinite. Now, why would you invest your resources contemplating shares hair? Think about the return on that investment. There is no return on that investment other than maybe just BSing. So, if feeling
Mm.
good is your goal, you'll find a million ways to feel good. If getting better is your goal, you'll invest your resources much more optimally. Now, regarding the prompts and what questions to ask yourself, existentialism requires that you're constantly asking questions. And that's what thinking is. Let me ask myself a question. Let me think about it. Earlier today, I was on recording with my business partner, Kevin, and he said, I want to get more clients. I said, okay, how can you get more clients? And he said, well, I could post on social media more. I said, okay, how can you post on social media more? He's like, well, I could do a reel every other day. Okay, well, what's the reel going to be about? He's like, "Well, I'll do it on podcasting because we work with 63 podcasters." I say, "Okay, in the reel, how long are they gonna be?" So you keep asking questions until you get to the answer. And so one of the
Right.
questions that I adore that everyone can ask themselves is, "What's the one thing that can change everything?" For me, and you can ask this in reflection, I try to rewatch the movie of my own life to sort of relearn me, relearn people, relearn the world, from this higher sense of awareness. When you read a book the second time and you notice something in the book that's different, you're not noticing something in the book that's different. You're noticing something in yourself that's different. I like to watch old movies. I watched the Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi again recently, which was 1977, 1980, and 1983. Whoa. And it's wild because I remember seeing them as a kid on VHS, and now they're remastered and they're awesome. But I go, "Oh, okay, so Han Solo's a little bit of toxic masculinity. I didn't realize. That's interesting, right? They're bickering and bantering. They need some relationship coaching." But the point is that you can learn by asking and answering these questions. So I have this Dreamliner. It's on Amazon. It's called the Next Level Dreamliner. You can research it. But ultimately, we have a question every single day. So the question for today is, when we think we don't have time for ourselves, that is exactly when we need to make time. What is one way you could make more time for yourself, even if it's just 5 minutes? That's today's question. So we have a question of the day in our Dreamliner, and it's sort of achieve your dreams 90 days at a time. It breaks everything into quarters, metrics, and habits. But
Mm.
ultimately, some of the questions that are my favorites, and questions are infinite. You can keep coming up with them. Some of my favorites, I'll just give you the top 3 favorites. Number 1 is, what's the one thing that could change everything? Boom, meeting Emilia Smith, my beautiful girlfriend, future wife. That is the one thing that changed everything for me. She's the greatest freaking gift of my entire life. Okay, next question. What is the limiting belief that has disguised itself as empowering? Oh, that's a good question.
Mm.
Here's one.
It is a
Work
great
smart, not
question.
hard. Huh? It's a limiting belief that's disguised itself as empowering, unless you think it's dumb, in which case it's actually good. Okay. Paradox. The third question is, what's one thing I can do today that will make 1,000 future decisions easier? I'll give you a tiny example. My beautiful girlfriend, she got us she got us shades. We have a smart home. Very grateful. big into tech. I'm a computer engineer. She's a tech. She has Evolve Ventures Technologies is the name of her company, and she bought these automated shades. I don't have them in my office, but they're downstairs, and they open and close at a certain time every day.
Right.
I used to wake up in the morning and I used to go manually open the shades every single day. I would take time and effort and do that. And now they
Right.
open and close and there's solar panels on them, so they're good to go. Program them once, you can program them with your phone, smart shades, and then they open the shades at 10 a.m. They close them at 7 p.m. And then when the time change and now it gets dark at like 5, so now, it closes sooner and it opens sooner. The point is what's the one thing that I can do now, buy automated shades that will solve 1,000 future problems or 100 future problems or dozens of future problems, whatever way you ask the question. Questions are what unlock strategic thinking, and strategic thinking is what changes the world.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing all these insights. It's really already sparking something just talking about it. Um, I want to actually take it into a little bit of a different topic just because of something you said. And I don't know if you are at all spiritual, but from what you said, when you read a book and you recognize something else, it's actually something that changed in you. Just made me think of um, this theory of reflection that a lot of the things that we come across in the world, a lot of the things we see in the things around us and the people around us are actually just reflecting outwards what we have inside. Is that a theory that you would agree with? Is that something that you think has substance?
The world is your mirror, and yeah, so essentially what I think the practical version of that is, and I do spirituality to me is quantum physics, which is energy, and I do believe matter is not created nor destroyed. So I do believe we're all energy, and I do, I'm not religious by at all, but I am spiritual. And so I have this pyramid of the universe that starts with the bottom and it goes up. And that's the cool thing about a pyramid. If you want to climb higher, you have to build the foundation wider. And it starts with the bottom of the pyramid is mathematics, which I think is the study of the universe. The next is physics, which is the study of the physical universe. The next after that is chemistry, which is the study of matter. And then after that is biology, which is the study of living things. After biology is physiology, which is the study of the human body. And then you have neuroscience, which is the study of the human brain. And then after that, you have psychology, which is the study of the human mind. And then at the pinnacle, you have spirituality, which I believe is the study of existential beyond life. And to me, if you understand that whole pyramid, that's you are, Yoda, so to speak, metaphorically. And I don't know why, but ever since I was younger, I felt like I had the opportunity to be the most intelligent version of myself. And I feel like I wanted to understand everything. My girlfriend and I, we joke, we don't need to know, or we don't want to know, we effing need to know, right? I remember Kev, my business partner, he's like, "How do you know all this?" And I said, "Kev, I needed to know all this in order to achieve my dreams." And he's like, "Well, where'd your dreams come from?" I said, "I don't know. Did I choose them? Did they choose me? I don't know." Here's what I would say about spirituality: the world is your mirror in this sense. If you are insecure about your intelligence, you have been triggered by this conversation. If you're insecure about your lack of awareness, you have been triggered by this conversation. So I am a mirror that is showing you something about yourself if you're willing to look at it. So you have an opportunity. You can either shut this off, which you already did if this is the case, or you can really go, okay, I got triggered by that. Why am I triggered by him? Is he arrogant? Is he full of it? Or am I insecure? And if I'm insecure, what about? Okay, well, maybe I don't think I'm that smart. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, maybe I haven't read as many books as him. Okay, well, maybe I should read more books. There's an opportunity in every experience to reflect upon it and then improve. And unfortunately, our ego, which is survival mechanisms, protects us from seeing the lesson in everything. And, you know, I trigger people who feel insecure about their intelligence, and I'm insecure about their insecurity. So I'm triggered, and then the trigger, it's this whole thing. And ultimately, you just have to consistently try, fail forward, reflect, learn, improve, try again, fail forward, reflect, and basically just bludgeon yourself with constant experiments and learn from each of them. And then hopefully become more and more and more of your true self, which inspires others to do the same. And that's really the only reason I'm here is hopefully I can help self improvement spread through my own example. Because ultimately that's what I wish that I had when I was a kid is I really wish that I had been more open to and or had more exposure to holistic self-improvement when I was younger.
Yes. Um, I'm just gonna try and ask a very probably difficult question. But I feel like the conversation kind of took us there. And I loved again how you explained the spiritual thing with the science, because that's also a thing that a lot of people don't really realize that the two do actually go hand in hand and are not really opposed to each other. So as we spoke about the science of it, as we spoke about looking at things objectively, um, and we obviously talked about calling for you personally, for someone personally, but what do you believe that the purpose of life is? As you said, existentialism. What do you think? Why are we here?
Well, my short answer is doing all you can with all you have in alignment with your potential. My personal answer is to maximize my own unique potential and help others do the same. However, what do I think is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is to aim at the highest possible good, virtue, and to align yourself with it in hopes that it inspires others who inspire others who inspire others. So leading leaders. But ultimately, there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and it's for women too. It's by Viktor Frankl, who I believe is a genius. And I've read this book probably 50 plus times, maybe even more. I go to bed with it often whenever I need a level set because every time I think I have problems, this book reminds me I don't have real problems. Uh, because he was in World War II in concentration camps. And I mean, yeah, just it's a good level set. Every time you think you're having a hard day, pick that book up. Trust me, you're not. And for me, I need that because honestly, it's brutal sometimes. But, anyways, the man's search for meaning, meaning what is the meaning of life? There's a part of that book that talks about imagine a group of gorillas or chimpanzees that are being tested on for a new drug. The gorillas are not intelligent enough to understand that the suffering they're going through is for a greater purpose. And I thought that was a good metaphor, as much as I don't agree with animal cruelty or anything like that. That's not my point. My point is that what if the suffering we're going through in life is actually for a greater purpose that we can't understand yet? I think that's a really cool way to frame what I think the meaning of life is. So the meaning of life, I think, is to figure out the meaning of life, and in particular, to live a meaningful life. And how do you do that? I think you do that by growing and contributing, reaching your true potential and contributing and living the highest quality life possible. And I say this too because if you're people say, "Well, I'm so grateful," it's like, "Well, prove it. You're grateful for your health. Why don't you exercise? Why don't you take care of yourself? Why don't you get good sleep? Why don't you hydrate? You're not grateful for your health. You're full of it." And I was full of it too. I said, "Oh, I'm grateful for my health." Well, then why do you drink so much and so often, Alan? So I'm just as guilty, right? So, but I wasn't fulfilled. So I believe, yeah, my real answer to the purpose of life is to live the most fulfilling, meaningful life possible, and only you can know for you how to do that. But there are principles that apply to all of us. The way we apply those principles needs to be unique to each of us.
And Maybe if I can just follow up with a similar question. Does the concept of legacy, and whatever that might personally mean to you as well, if you want to, like, what does that expression mean to you personally? Does that shape how you live your life as well?
Yeah, it's so I have my desktop background. I have a true north, and I have my top three core values. My number one core value is legacy, a deep belief in creating a long term positive impact far beyond one's own life. And I grew up without my dad. Obviously, he passed away when he was 28, and I was 2. And I heard stories through the grapevine over time about my dad and the impact that he had. So for a lot of people, I think legacy is an intellectual experience. For me, it was always emotional, and I just saw how much of an impact you can have from a very young age. My dad, apparently they had 600 plus people at my father's funeral, and I was only 2, so I don't remember it. But I
Oh,
did see the impact and the ripple effect of his life. And while I'm the only one who talks about how he died, most people talk about how he lived and how he lived life to the fullest. Almost too much reckless, a little bit reckless, which I never had the courage to say out loud in my early years. But it's how you live that's going to matter ultimately. And so, yeah, legacy is my number one core value. I think about it every day. And I think it's important too, because I think most people are thinking about today. Oh, what am I going to have for dinner today? You got to think about who you are and what you want to stand for. And you got to fight for that. And I do mean fight, because all good in this world will be attacked. That's for damn sure. And if you know, you got to be fighting for something, because otherwise you will feel empty.
yes. Um, Maybe just to actually close it off, because I could talk with you for hours. And again, I am so thankful for you taking the time and letting me actually pick your brain. But we've covered so much and so much valuable, inspirational stuff here. Um,
Wandering on the
is
mic with Mike. I
That's
appreciate it,
what we're
brother.
doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, so yeah, to cap it off, how do you just keep the motivation up? Because it seems like you're um doing it all. You have this big passion that you can obviously see, but you're just a human. So maybe if you can let us look into how do you keep motivation up to keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I think you got to study motivation, and there's a ton of we have something called the 5 M's of next level motivation. It's mating slash romance, movement slash freedom, money slash materials, mission slash purpose, and mastery slash uh, personal development. And I would say I'm ignited on all 5 cylinders more than I ever have been. And I think most people are not tapping into all of them. So I'll go through them briefly. And again, this is just our framework, but uh, the one that people are missing is the mission slash purpose one. We talked a lot on this episode about that. That's my main one. I mean, that's the pull. Most people are pushing themselves every day. I'm pushing myself to stay in the pull. And the pull is more of a calling than it is, these people that you see that, well, why do they keep working? They were never doing it for money. Anyone out there that's listening to this, you can tell that I'm not here for money. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm here for something bigger than money, and money will be a byproduct. If you're going for just money, you'll get money, but maybe nothing else, right? So you got to play for something bigger. Usually, it's almost like the iceberg metaphor. Everything you see on the surface is created by something far bigger beneath the surface that you can't see. And so the M's of motivation, the biggest one by far for me is mission and purpose, and that's the one I found at 26. Did it find me or I find it? I think it's both. And I keep searching. The only wrong answer for those who don't feel like they have it is keep searching. The only wrong answer is to stop searching. All right, now I'll go through the other one. So mastery slash personal development is my biggest of the four. So the 5, mission and purpose, that's the spiritual one. The other 4 are sort of the human ones. And mine is by far, I love mastery. I'm here to practice my craft. You can tell that I'm trying to effectively communicate what's in my brain to other people in a way that's understandable. Great oratory, great communication, effective communication is when I can get someone else to understand it the way I understand it. That's when it clicks. That's the breakthrough. Deeper understanding is unbelievable. That's the software upgrade, so to speak. So, mastery slash personal development is working on myself. That motivates me a ton. Mission slash purpose, we already talked about that. That's the pull. Mating slash romance, I want to be the best partner I can be for Emilia, the love of my life, greatest gift of my life. Oh my goodness. And then relationships, I want to be good for Kevin, my business partner, for my team, 18-person team, awesome, that kind of thing. Our community, our listeners. So relationships need to motivate you. Money slash materials is the least motivator for me. I have a nice Tesla, which I'm grateful for, but like I don't care that much. I've never really cared a lot about material things. When my stepdad left, we kind of lost all our material things. And, he got the yacht and the apartment building. We got the house and the dog, and he got all the bells and whistles. And somehow I'd never really cared about material things that much. However, I do love a nice, good laptop. I do love a good, we got a new projector, movie theater, home theater. I'm really pumped about, but it's
Right.
not that motivating. Okay, and then the last one is movement slash freedom. This is a big one. I do not want to. I want to live a life that is on my own terms. I remember what it was like to have to be at a meeting at a certain time. I remember when I had not only a boss, but a boss's boss's boss. And I just, not for me. And again, trust me, if you think that you're going to start a company and that you're going to have more free time, that is a bold faced lie. That is a bold faced lie. If you do want to start a company, I'm all for it. I coach business owners, but you will not have more free time. However, you will get to choose what you do with your time, sort of. Because instead of a boss and a boss's boss and a boss's boss's boss, I have 63 podcasting clients, 26 clients, and they're all kind of my boss in a way, right? So just understand that
Yeah.
the 4-hour work week is a bold faced lie as much as I like Tim Ferriss. And that does not exist, despite what the internet might want to tell you.
Well, great. So yeah, again, I'm just super thankful. And if you just want to tell the people, if or anyone that listen to us now, they're as inspired as I am at the moment. If they want to find out more, you talked about the things you do, next level. You talked about your journal, which I didn't even know you had, or the planner, or rather. So if people just want to find out more about you, just quickly let them know where they can find those things, and obviously any and all links I'll put in the description as well for them to check out.
Again, the sandwich of gratitude, beginning and end. Thank you again for having me. This has been a genuine pleasure and an honor. I really appreciate it. This was a very safe space to express, and I don't take that lightly. And for anyone listening, I hope that you got a lot from it, and keep doing you and keep bettering your best. As far as where you can find me, if you this is what I've started saying. I never had the courage to say this before. If you are humble and grateful and you have a work ethic and you want to earn your way to both success and fulfillment, you're going to love Next Level University. You're going to love me. You're going to love Kevin. You're going to love the community. If you are entitled and spoiled on any level and you want big rewards for minimal effort, do not reach out. And you already turned this off by that point anyway, so we're good. But ultimately, seriously, we're the tryhards. We don't believe in quick fixes. We're not about that. We're about fundamentals over time and earning your way to both success and fulfillment. Him and I came from very humble beginnings, and uh, if you want to earn it, we're for you. And if you're humble, inwardly humble, where you can find us is nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds. The podcast is Next Level University. It's a place you go to learn how to reach your potential, your unique potential, level up your life, love, health, and wealth. 1% improvement in your pocket every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. We do an episode every day. The average is 30 minutes a day for podcast episodes. And we have a journal. We got monthly meetups. We do a book club every week. We got a bunch of stuff. We have a group coaching program for podcasters as well. So All of that will be on the website. And if you want to reach out on social, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn are probably the best places. But please provide context if you do reach out, because obviously we all get a lot of spam.
All right, super cool. Um, so yeah, man. Thanks. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. And with that, I want to say bye, everyone.
Thank you, Mike.